The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with voices from a dozen different worlds. Commander June stood at the edge of the gathering, his blue-scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched the celebration unfold before him. The Altarian delegation splashed quietly in their mobile water tanks while the Nexari representatives glowed with soft crystalline light. Even the luminants had manifested physical forms for this historic occasion, their energy bodies shimmering like captured starlight. 30 years of war had finally ended. June touched the scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw, a reminder of the Battle of Kepler Station, where he had lost half his crew to Viridian bioweapons. The insectoid monsters had swept through that system like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Ships, stations, entire planets had been stripped bare and converted into more of their kind. For 3 decades, the galaxy had lived in terror of their endless hunger. Now they were gone. Admiral Tay stepped up to the central podium, her weathered face showing the strain of countless sleepless nights spent coordinating the war effort. The massive Nexari admiral's crystalline form caught the light as she moved, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of history. "Fellow beings of the Galactic Council," Tay began, "today marks the end of the darkest chapter in our shared history. The Viridian threat has been eliminated. Our combined fleets have swept every known system. No trace of their bioships remains. The galaxy is finally at peace." Cheers erupted from the delegates. The Altarians created a harmonic song with their throat sacs, while the luminants pulsed with bright energy. June wanted to feel their joy, but something cold settled in his stomach instead. He had fought the bugs for too long to believe victory could come so easily. Dr. Hana approached him from across the hall, her small frame moving quickly through the crowd. The Nexari scientist's crystalline features showed concern despite the celebration around them. She carried a datapad that glowed. "With urgent readings. Commander June," she said quietly, "I need to speak with you privately." June nodded and followed her out of the great hall into a smaller chamber used for private meetings. The walls here were lined with star maps showing the current state of galactic civilization. Red zones marked former Viridian territory, slowly being reclaimed by the Allied forces. "What troubles you, Doctor?" June asked. Hana activated her datapad and projected a holographic display into the air between them. The image showed microscopic details of Viridian biomatter, the twisted organic technology that had made their ships and weapons so terrifying. "I have been studying the remains we collected from the final battle sites," Hana explained. "The tissue samples, the ship fragments, everything we could gather from their defeated fleets, and the cellular structure shows signs of extreme stress, not from weapon damage but from something else, something that happened before our final assault." Hana manipulated the display to show chemical markers within the alien tissue. These indicators suggest the Viridians were in a state of panic when they died. June studied the data carefully. His military training had taught him to read between the lines of intelligence reports. "You think they were running from something?" "Not running," Hana said grimly. "Fleeing in absolute terror." The commander felt that cold sensation in his stomach grow stronger. What could make the Viridians afraid? They consumed entire star systems. They showed no fear of death, no hesitation in battle. "I do not know," Hana admitted. "But there is more. The deep space monitoring stations have been picking up unusual readings from beyond the galactic rim. Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases." June moved to the star map on the wall and studied the outer regions. The galaxy's edge was marked by a thin line of monitoring stations, early warning systems designed to detect incoming threats. During the war, they had saved countless worlds by providing advance notice of Viridian fleets. "How long have these readings been detected?" 3 weeks, Hana replied. "Right around the time the last Viridian bioships disappeared from our sensors." "Show me the data." Hana projected a new display, this one showing energy readings from the monitoring stations. The patterns were unlike anything June had seen before. They showed massive disturbances in space-time, as if something enormous was moving through the void between galaxies. "The energy output is incredible," Hana continued. Whatever is generating these readings would have to be larger than our biggest. Dreadnoughts. Multiple contacts. Moving in formation. June studied the readings more carefully. His experience as a fleet commander had taught him to recognize the signatures of different ship types and propulsion systems. These readings showed characteristics he had never encountered before. "Have you shared this with Admiral Tay?" "Not yet," Hana said. "I wanted to be certain of my findings first. The Council is so focused on celebrating the end of the war. I did not want to cause unnecessary panic. Doctor, if you are correct about the Viridians fleeing from something, then this celebration may be premature." June turned back to face her. "We need to present this information immediately." Before Hana could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout Nexus Prime. The emergency tone was one that had not been heard since the early days of the Viridian War. Both June and Hana rushed back toward the Great Hall. They found chaos waiting for them. The celebration had ended abruptly as emergency communications flooded in from across the galaxy. Admiral Tay stood at the central command console, her crystalline features flickering with stress as she processed multiple incoming reports. "What is the situation?" June called out as he approached. "Long-range sensors have detected massive energy disturbances approaching from Galactic North," Tay replied without looking up from her displays. "Multiple contacts, size and configuration unknown." June exchanged a grim look with Dr. Hana. Her fears were being confirmed in real time. "Distance and estimated arrival time?" he asked. "Approximately 72 hours at current velocity," Tay said. "But Commander, there is something else. We are receiving a transmission." "From the approaching contacts?" "No," Tay said, her voice carrying a note of confusion. "From the Kepler system. The transmission is coming from coordinates that should be empty space." June felt his scar begin to ache. Kepler was where he had lost his crew, where the Viridians had stripped 3 planets bare before moving on to consume the rest of the system. "Nothing should be alive there. Put the transmission through," Admiral Tay ordered. The Great Hall fell silent as speakers activated throughout the chamber. Static filled the air for several seconds before a voice broke through. It was speaking, in a language none of them recognized, but the universal translators quickly began processing the alien words. "This is Survivor 7 of the Sol 3 expedition," the voice said. "I am transmitting from the remains of the Kepler system. The bug problem has been contained in this sector, requesting immediate contact with local galactic authority." The delegates looked at each other in confusion. Sol 3 was listed in their databases as a dead world, sterilized by Viridian bioweapons 15 years earlier. No survivors should have been possible. "Sol 3 was destroyed," Dr. Hana whispered. "Our records show complete planetary consumption." Admiral Tay activated the communication system. "Unknown vessel, this is Galactic Command at Nexus Prime. Please, identify your species and explain your presence in Kepler system." The response came quickly, spoken in the same calm tone. "I am human. My ship suffered damage during bug extermination operations. I require temporary sanctuary while repairs are completed." "Human?" Tay looked around the hall. "I have no record of this species in our databases." "Admiral," one of the luminant delegates pulsed with urgent energy. "Our archives show a minor species from the Sol system. They were reported extinct after Viridian contact 15 years ago," the voice continued through the speakers. "I have detected large energy signatures approaching this galaxy. Analysis suggests Viridian colony fleet inbound. Estimated arrival in 70 hours. Recommend immediate defensive preparations." June felt the pieces of a terrible puzzle clicking into place in his mind. The Viridians fleeing in terror, the energy, signatures from beyond the galaxy, and now a survivor from a supposedly dead world warning them about incoming threats. "How could this being know about the approaching contacts?" Dr. Hana asked quietly. Admiral Tay was thinking the same thing. She leaned forward toward the communication console. "Human vessel, how do you have information about threats we have only just detected?" "Because I have been hunting them," came the reply. "The bugs you fought here were scouts and advance forces. The real swarm is just arriving. You will need help to survive what comes next." The Great Hall erupted in nervous conversation as the implications sank in. The war they thought they had won was apparently just beginning. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, something massive was approaching. and the only being who seemed to understand the true nature of their enemy was a member of a species that should not exist. Admiral Tay made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Human vessel, you are granted sanctuary at Nexus Prime. Prepare for escort to our coordinates. As she closed the communication channel, Commander June watched through the viewport of his patrol ship as the human vessel approached Nexus Prime. The craft was unlike anything in his experience. Where galactic ships followed established principles of engineering and aesthetics, this vessel seemed to ignore conventional design entirely. Its hull was angular and dark, covered in what looked like organic growths that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "the vessel is not responding to standard docking protocols. Try the emergency frequencies," June ordered, though he suspected the problem was more fundamental than simple communication issues. Captain Bin materialized beside him, the Nexari security chief's crystalline form flickering with agitation. "This makes no sense. How can a ship from a dead world function at all? Our records clearly show Sol 3 was completely consumed." Through the speakers came the same calm voice they had heard earlier. "Nexus Prime Control, this is Survivor 7. Your docking systems are incompatible with my vessel, requesting permission to use alternative boarding methods." Admiral Tay's voice crackled through the communication system. "Human vessel, explain your alternative methods. I will deploy a personal transport pod. Standard atmospheric composition should be sufficient for brief exposure." June exchanged glances with Captain Bin. Most species required specific environmental conditions for survival. The idea that this being could adapt to their standard atmosphere suggested either remarkable biological flexibility or advanced life support technology. "Permission granted," Admiral Tay replied. "Proceed to Docking Bay 7. June guided his patrol ship back to Nexus Prime, maintaining a respectful distance from the human vessel. As they approached the station, he observed the alien craft more closely. The organic growths on its hull seemed to shift and change, as if the ship itself was alive. Weapons ports opened and closed like breathing vents, and the propulsion system left energy signatures he had never seen before. In Docking Bay 7, a crowd had gathered to witness the arrival. Dr. Hana stood near the airlock controls, her scientific curiosity overriding any concerns about safety. Admiral Tay waited with a full security detail, while delegates from various species clustered behind protective barriers. The human transport pod was even stranger than its parent vessel. It looked like a seed or cocoon, organic curves blending seamlessly with mechanical components. When it settled onto the docking bay floor, the pod began to unfold like a flower blooming in fast motion. What emerged was not what anyone expected. The human was bipedal, roughly the same size as an average. Altarian, but there the similarities ended. Its skin was pale and seemed to shift color slightly depending on the angle of light. Dark hair covered the top of its head, and its eyes were small and dark, constantly moving as if cataloging every detail of its surroundings. But it was the creature's equipment that truly unsettled the observers. The human wore what appeared to be a combination of technological devices and organic components. Tubes and wires ran beneath its skin like visible veins, and portions of its clothing seemed to be alive, adjusting and adapting to the station's environment in real time. "Atmospheric composition acceptable," the human said, its voice carrying easily across the docking bay despite the lack of visible communication equipment. "Gravity within tolerance. Temperature optimal." Admiral Tay stepped forward, flanked by her security detail. "I am Admiral Tay of the Galactic Defense Force. You are welcome aboard Nexus Prime." The human turned its attention to her, and June felt an uncomfortable sensation as those dark eyes seemed to analyze the Admiral with inhuman intensity. "I am designated Survivor 7. My original identification is no longer relevant. We need to understand your situation," Tay continued. "Our records show your homeworld was destroyed 15 years ago. How did you survive?" "Sol 3 was not destroyed," the human replied matter-of-factly. "It was transformed. The Viridian assault was repelled, but at significant cost. Planetary surface required extensive reconstruction." Dr. Hana stepped closer, her scientific instruments already scanning the newcomer. "Our deep space monitoring showed complete bioconsumption of your system. No life signs remained. The human looked at her with what might have been amusement. Your monitoring equipment was designed to detect conventional life forms. After the Viridian attack, conventional life was no longer sufficient for survival. What do you mean? Captain Ben demanded, his security instincts clearly triggered by the human's evasive answers. Instead of responding directly, the human moved toward one of the station's interface terminals. Without asking permission, it placed its hand on the control panel. The organic components in its equipment began to glow, and suddenly the terminal came alive with data streams that moved faster than any organic mind could process. Your databases contain extensive information about Viridian biology and tactics, the human observed while simultaneously accessing multiple systems. This knowledge will be useful for what comes next. Stop! Captain Ben shouted, moving toward the terminal. You do not have authorization to access our systems. The human removed its hand from the panel, but the damage was done. In seconds, it had somehow interfaced directly with their most secure networks. Authorization is irrelevant when survival is at stake. The approaching fleet contains approximately 47 bioships of unknown configuration. They are not the same type. You have previously encountered... Admiral Tay felt a chill run through her crystalline form. How can you know this? Our best sensors can barely detect their presence. Because I have been tracking them for 16 months, the human replied. They represent the core of the Viridian collective, the original bioforms from which all others were spawned. What you fought in this galaxy were offspring, scouts, harvesters preparing the way for the true swarm. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. If this human was correct, then everything they thought they knew about their enemy was wrong. The massive fleets they had fought and defeated were merely the advance forces of something much larger and more dangerous. Dr. Hana's instruments were showing readings that made no sense. Your biology is highly unusual. I am detecting both organic and synthetic components, but they appear to be completely integrated. Adaptation was necessary, the human explained. Pure biological forms could not survive extended exposure to Viridian bioweapons. Pure technological forms lacked the flexibility needed for combat against a constantly evolving enemy. Synthesis provided optimal survival characteristics. You modified yourself, June realized, speaking for the first time since the human's arrival. You changed your own species to fight them. Not just modified, the human corrected. Evolved. Forced evolutionary pressure applied across multiple generations in accelerated time frames. What you see now is the result of 15 years of continuous adaptation. Captain Ben's security concerns were rapidly escalating. Admiral, this being has demonstrated the ability to penetrate our most secure systems. We should consider it a potential threat. The human turned its attention to the security. Chief. And Ben took an involuntary step backward. There was something predatory in that gaze, something that suggested the being was evaluating him as a potential resource or obstacle. Your concern is noted but irrelevant, the human said calmly. Threat assessment indicates 0 probability of hostile action from Nexus Prime inhabitants against Survivor 7. Environmental factors do not support aggressive behavior patterns. Are you reading our minds? Dr. Hana asked, her scientific curiosity warring with growing unease. No. Behavioral analysis based on observed body language, vocal stress patterns, pheromone emissions, and electromagnetic field fluctuations. Standard. Threat assessment protocols. Admiral Tay was beginning to understand that they were dealing with something far beyond their experience. You mentioned the approaching fleet. What can you tell us about their capabilities? The human moved to another terminal, again interfacing directly with the station's systems. This time, holographic displays filled the air above them, showing detailed tactical information about ship configurations and weapon systems that looked like nightmares made real. Core bioships are significantly larger than scout vessels, the human explained as images flowed through the display. Primary weapons include planetary consumption beams, biomatter conversion fields, and adaptive defense systems that learn from each attack. Standard galactic military doctrine will be ineffective. Then how do we fight them? June asked, his tactical mind already working through the implications. You do not fight them, the human replied. I fight them. You survive long enough for me to complete the elimination process. The casual way it spoke of eliminating an entire fleet sent chills through the assembled delegates. This was not the desperate survivor they had expected to rescue. This was something else entirely. Something that spoke of exterminating their enemies with the same tone others might use to discuss routine maintenance. "You expect us to simply wait while you single-handedly engage 47 capital ships?" Captain Ben asked incredulously. "Not single-handedly," the human corrected. "I will require access to your industrial facilities, raw materials, and biological samples from your defeated Viridian encounters. Construction time for necessary equipment is estimated at 68 hours. Dr. Hana sat across from the human in the secure interrogation chamber, her recording devices capturing every word while her instruments continued their impossible readings. The being had agreed to answer questions while the Galactic Council deliberated, but Hana suspected it was simply using the time to study them as much as they were studying it. "Tell me about Earth," she began, using the human designation for Sol 3. "What really happened during the Viridian attack?" The human was silent for several moments, its dark eyes staring at something beyond the chamber walls. When it spoke, its voice carried no emotion, despite describing horrors beyond imagination. Initial contact occurred during what you would call harvest season. 17 billion humans occupied the planetary surface across 7 major continents. Viridian bioships achieved orbital supremacy within 6 hours of arrival. Hana's instruments detected subtle changes in the human's biology as it spoke, as if the memories were triggering automatic defensive responses in its hybrid physiology. The bioconsumption process began immediately. Standard Viridian protocol involved conversion of organic matter into raw materials for fleet expansion. Estimated time for complete planetary processing was 48 hours. But something went wrong, Hana prompted. "Not wrong, unexpected." The human's fingers drummed against the table in a rhythm that seemed too fast for normal nerve responses. Humans demonstrated unusual adaptability to bioweapon exposure. Instead of dying, some individuals began to change. Change how? Cellular restructuring, genetic adaptation. Rapid evolutionary pressure resulted in beneficial mutations that allowed survival in contaminated environment. These individuals became the foundation for counter-adaptation protocols. Hana felt a chill as she realized the implications. You experimented on yourselves. Used the Viridian bioweapons as evolutionary catalysts. Experimentation implies choice, the human corrected. Survival demanded adaptation. Those who could not adapt contributed their biological material to those who could. Efficiency required optimization of available resources. The casual way it described using the dead as raw materials for the living made Hana's crystalline structure flicker with distress. This being spoke of atrocities as if they were simple engineering problems. How many survived the initial adaptation process? Approximately 12,000 individuals achieved stable biointegration within the first year. Secondary adaptation phases reduced this number to roughly 3,000. Final optimization resulted in 700 viable specimens. Specimens? Humans who retained core personality matrices while gaining necessary biological modifications for extended Viridian combat operations. The human paused, tilting its head as if listening to something only it could hear. "I am Survivor 7 because 6 previous iterations failed to maintain operational stability during deep space missions." Hana realized she was no longer speaking with a representative of the human species. She was speaking with the end result of a nightmare evolution that had consumed an entire world's population to create a handful of living weapons. What happened to the Viridians on Earth? Elimination was achieved through bioweapon reversal protocols. Their own consumption technology was adapted to consume them instead. Process required 18 months to achieve complete sterilization of planetary contamination. You turned their weapons against them. More than that. For the first time, something resembling satisfaction crossed the human's features. We learned to think like them, to adapt like them, to consume like them. When the process was complete, Earth had become more efficient at biowarfare than the Viridians themselves. The interrogation chamber door opened suddenly, admitting Captain E.T. Ben with a full security escort. The Nexari security chief's crystalline form was flickering with agitation as he approached the table. "Dr. Hana, you need to see this immediately," Ben said, activating a portable holographic display. We detected unauthorized access to our military databases 30 minutes ago. The intrusion originated from this chamber. Hana looked at the human, who showed no reaction to the accusation. I thought you had removed all interface devices from the prisoner. We did, Bin replied grimly. It appears to be accessing our systems through the room's own sensors. Somehow, it is using our monitoring equipment as interface points. The human spoke without looking away from Hana. Your security protocols are designed to prevent external intrusion. They do not account for biological systems that can interface directly with electromagnetic fields. You are reading our computer systems through the sensor arrays? Hana asked in amazement. Sensor networks generate electromagnetic patterns that can be interpreted as data streams. Standard human neural architecture lacks this capability, but enhanced biointegration allows direct interpretation of electronic information. Captain Bin stepped closer to the table, his security training overriding his scientific curiosity. What information have you accessed? Complete tactical databases, fleet deployment records, industrial capacity assessments, and biological archives of all galactic species. The human finally looked at Bin directly. Your defensive capabilities are insufficient for the approaching threat. Modifications will be required. Modifications to what? Everything. Ships, weapons, tactics, and personnel. The enemy you face cannot be defeated with conventional methods. Before Bin could respond, Admiral Tay's voice echoed through the chamber's communication system. Dr. Hana, report to the command center immediately. We have a situation. Hana looked uncertain about leaving the human unattended, but Bin gestured toward his security team. We will maintain observation. In the command center, chaos greeted Hana's arrival. Multiple displays showed readings from the long-range sensor networks, and the data was deeply disturbing. The approaching Viridian fleet had somehow accelerated beyond their previous estimates. Arrival time has been revised to 42 hours, Admiral Tay announced as Hana joined her at the central command console. Whatever drives those ships, they are moving faster than our best theoretical models suggested possible. Have you reached a decision about the human's request? Hana asked. The council is divided, Tay admitted. Some delegates believe we should grant access to our facilities. Others think the being is too dangerous to trust. Engineer Ara materialized beside them, the luminance energy form pulsing with excitement. Admiral, you need to see what I discovered in the human's ship. The luminant projected a holographic scan of the human vessel's interior, and what they saw defied every principle of engineering they knew. The ship's systems were a fusion of biological and technological components that should not have been able to function together. The propulsion system uses living tissue as a power source, Ara explained. The navigation computer is partially organic, grown rather than built. Most disturbing of all, the weapons systems appear to be learning and adapting based on stored combat data. Adapting how? Tay asked. The ship's weapons have been modified 17 times since its arrival here. Each modification appears designed to counter different types of Viridian bioarmor configurations. It is as if the vessel is preparing for specific enemies. Dr. Hana studied the scans more carefully, her scientific training allowing her to recognize patterns that others might miss. This technology is not just advanced, it is evolutionary. The ship is literally evolving to become more effective against its intended targets. But evolving based on what? Tay wondered. The human claims to have been tracking the approaching fleet, but our sensors only detected them recently. Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout Nexus Prime. Emergency broadcasts flooded the communication networks as sensor stations across the galaxy reported the same impossible readings. Admiral, the duty officer called out, we are receiving multiple distress signals from the outer colonies. The Viridian fleet has somehow split into smaller groups. They are attacking on multiple fronts simultaneously. Tay felt her crystalline structure dim with shock. That is impossible. They were moving as a single formation. Not impossible, came a calm voice from behind them. Predictable. They turned to see the human standing in the entrance to the command center. Captain Bin and his security team flanked the being, but their weapons remained lowered. The human had apparently convinced them it posed no immediate threat. How did you get out of the interrogation chamber? Tay demanded. Door locks are electromagnetic systems, the human replied simply. Biological interface allows direct manipulation of electronic components. You mean you can control our technology just by touching it? Or by being near it, depending on the system's design? The human moved to the central display and placed its hand on the control surface. Immediately, the readouts changed to show tactical information that had not been available moments before. The fleet division is standard Viridian strategy for established colonies, the human explained as new data flowed across the displays. Primary force continues toward the central system, while secondary groups eliminate support infrastructure. This prevents coordinated defense and ensures resource denial. Engineer Ara studied the new information with growing amazement. How can you access sensor data that our own systems cannot process? Your sensors collect more information than your computers can interpret. Engineer Ara had seen many impossible things during her long career, but nothing had prepared her for what she witnessed in the industrial sections of Nexus Prime. The human had transformed the manufacturing facilities into something that defied every principle of engineering she understood. Where once orderly production lines had created standardized components, now organic growths pulsed and writhed alongside mechanical systems. The human moved through this nightmare landscape like a conductor directing a symphony of horrors, its bio-enhanced form interfacing directly with both living and artificial systems. Status report. Admiral Tay's voice crackled through Ara's communication device. The modifications are beyond anything in our technological databases, Ara replied, her energy form flickering with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. The human has somehow merged our manufacturing systems with biological components salvaged from defeated Viridian ships. Through the observation windows, they could see the humans standing before a massive organic structure that had once been a starship. Assembly platform. Now it resembled a giant cocoon, its surface rippling with veins of light that pulsed in rhythm with the being's own biosystems. What is it building? Tay asked. Ships, Ara said, though the word felt inadequate. But not like any vessels in our design archives. These craft appear to be grown rather than constructed. Dr. Hana joined them at the observation deck, her instruments already scanning the impossible scene below. The energy readings are off our measurement scales. Whatever process the human is using, it is consuming massive amounts of power. Where is that power coming from? Tay wondered. Ara highlighted sections of her display that showed energy flow patterns throughout the station. The human has somehow tapped directly into our main reactor core. But more than that, it appears to be converting matter from our raw material stores into pure energy through some kind of biomechanical process. That should be impossible, Hana protested. Matter-energy conversion requires technology we do not possess. The human does not seem concerned with our technological limitations, Ara observed. Look at this. She projected a detailed scan of one of the growing vessels in the manufacturing bay. The ship's hull was a seamless blend of metallic armor and organic tissue. Weapons ports opened and closed like breathing organisms, and the propulsion system appeared to be based on biological processes rather than conventional engines. The vessel is literally alive, Hana breathed. It has a nervous system, a circulatory system, even what appears to be a brain. But it also has conventional weapons systems, Ara added. Energy cannons, missile launchers, defensive shields. The human has somehow created hybrid technology that combines the best aspects of both biological and artificial systems. Commander, June entered the observation deck, his scaled features showing the strain of coordinating the defense against the approaching Viridian fleets. Admiral, we need an update on the human's progress. Our outer defenses are reporting first contact with enemy scouts. How long until the main fleet arrives? Tay asked. 18 hours, June replied grimly. Our conventional forces are already engaging the advanced elements, but the reports are not encouraging. These Viridian bioships are unlike anything we, faced before. They adapt to our weapons almost immediately. As if summoned by their conversation, the human appeared in the observation deck without warning. Its bio-enhanced form seemed to materialize from the shadows, moving with a fluidity that suggested its bones and muscles had been redesigned for optimal efficiency. First production batch is complete, it announced without preamble. Initial test units are ready for deployment. Through the windows, they could see 3 of the hybrid vessels emerging from their organic cocoons. The ships moved like living creatures, their hulls rippling with bioluminescent patterns as internal systems came online. "How many ships can you produce?" Admiral Tay asked. "Current manufacturing capacity allows for 17 units within the remaining time frame," the human replied. "However, quantity is less important than capability. Each vessel is designed to counter specific Viridian bioship configurations." "Based on what intelligence?" June demanded. "We have never encountered these particular enemy types." The human turned its attention to the commander, and June felt that familiar chill as those dark eyes seemed to catalog his every weakness. Intelligence gathered during 16 months of pursuit across multiple star systems. Each encounter provided additional data for tactical analysis. "You have been fighting them this entire time," Dr. Hana realized, "following them from system to system. Not fighting, hunting." The human's expression remained unchanged as it delivered words that made the assembled officers understand they were dealing with something far more dangerous than they had imagined. Conventional military engagement allows enemy escape and regrouping. Hunting ensures complete elimination. Engineer Ara studied the readings from the hybrid ships more carefully. "The power output from these vessels is incredible. How do they generate so much energy?" "Biomechanical fusion systems," the human explained. "Living tissue provides continuous fuel through controlled cellular breakdown. Process is self-sustaining as long as organic matter is available for consumption." "What kind of organic matter?" Captain Bin asked, having joined them with obvious concern about the security implications. "Any biological material will suffice. Enemy bioships provide optimal fuel source during combat operations." The implications hit them like a physical blow. These ships were designed to consume their enemies, literally feeding on Viridian biomatter to sustain themselves during battle. "That is monstrous," Dr. Hana whispered. "That is necessary," the human corrected. "Viridian biology is based on consumption and conversion of organic matter. Fighting them with conventional weapons is inefficient. Fighting them with their own biological principles ensures victory." Admiral Tay was beginning to understand the true cost of their decision to trust this being. "You have turned our manufacturing facilities into something that creates living weapons. I have optimized your industrial capacity for maximum effectiveness against the current threat," the human replied matter-of-factly. "Standard galactic military doctrine has proven inadequate. Adaptation was required." Before anyone could respond, alarms began echoing throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts flooded the communication networks as the first wave of Viridian scouts engaged the outer defense perimeter. "Admiral," the duty officer's voice crackled through the speakers, "the enemy scouts are using completely new tactics. Our conventional weapons are having minimal effect." The human moved to a nearby control panel and interfaced directly with the station's sensor networks. Instantly, tactical displays filled the air around them, showing real-time battle data from across the system. "Scout bioships are probing for weaknesses in your defensive grid," the human observed, while simultaneously accessing multiple data streams. "They are adapting to your weapon frequencies and shield configurations in real time." "How do we counter that?" June asked. "You do not." The human removed its hand from the control panel and turned toward the exit. "I do." "What do you mean?" "The hybrid vessels are ready for field testing. I will engage the scout forces directly while you prepare your conventional fleets for the main assault." Captain Bin stepped forward, his security instincts triggered by the human's casual assumption of command authority. "You cannot take on an entire enemy fleet alone." "I will not be alone." The human gestured toward the manufacturing bay where more hybrid vessels were emerging from their organic cocoons. "The ships will provide adequate support for elimination operations." "How can you control multiple vessels simultaneously?" Engineer Ara asked. "Bio-enhanced neural networks allow direct interface with ship consciousness systems. Each vessel operates as an extension of my own awareness during combat." Dr. Hana's instruments were showing readings that made no sense. "Your neural activity is off any scale we can measure. How is your brain processing this much information?" Standard human brain architecture was insufficient for extended combat operations against adaptive enemies. Modifications were necessary. The human paused at the exit, its dark eyes reflecting something that might have been sadness. What you see now is optimized for warfare, not for the peaceful existence your species enjoys. As the being left to prepare for battle, the assembled officers stood in stunned silence. Through the windows, they could see the hybrid vessels moving toward the docking bays, their living hulls pulsing with anticipation. "What have we done?" Dr. Hana asked quietly. Admiral Tay watched as the first hybrid ship launched from Nexus Prime, its biomechanical systems leaving energy signatures unlike anything in their databases. "We have unleashed something that may save us all, or something that may make us wish the Viridians had simply consumed us cleanly." Commander June was studying the tactical displays, his military mind trying to comprehend the implications of what they had witnessed. If that being can control multiple ships as extensions of its own consciousness, then we are not sending out a small fleet. We are sending out a single entity that happens to occupy multiple vessels. A single entity that has spent 15 years learning how to hunt and kill the galaxy's most dangerous predators, Tay added grimly. The main Viridian fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a plague made manifest. 47 bioships, each one larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, their organic hulls pulsing with malevolent life as they began their final approach toward Nexus Prime. Admiral Tay watched the tactical displays with growing horror as sensor readings revealed the true scale of what they faced. Individual bioships are showing mass readings equivalent to our largest dreadnoughts, Commander June reported from his position at the tactical station. Combined fleet mass exceeds our entire defensive force by a factor of 12. "Where is the human?" Captain Bin demanded, his crystalline form flickering with stress as he monitored security feeds throughout the station. "Unknown," Tay replied, grimly. "The hybrid vessels disappeared from our sensors 6 hours ago when they engaged the scout forces. No communication since then." Dr. Hana stood at her science station, instruments focused on the approaching nightmare fleet. "The bioships are unlike anything in our databases. Each one appears to be a completely integrated organism, not just ships made from biological material." Through the command center's main display, they could see the Viridian fleet arranging itself into attack formation. The massive bioships moved with predatory grace, their hulls bristling with weapon ports that opened and closed like feeding mouths. Smaller organisms swarmed around the larger vessels like antibodies protecting a living system. "All defensive fleets report ready," June announced. "Combined force includes 237 vessels from 6 different species. Against 47 enemy ships, those should be favorable odds," Engineer Ara observed, though her energy form betrayed her uncertainty. "Not against these opponents," Tay said quietly. "If the human was correct about their capabilities, our conventional forces will be consumed within hours." As if summoned by her words, the Viridian fleet suddenly accelerated toward Nexus Prime. What had been a methodical approach became a hunting charge as the bioships detected the defensive forces arrayed against them. "Enemy vessels are launching attack organisms," June reported as his sensors detected clouds of smaller bioforms streaming from the larger ships. Estimated count exceeds 50,000 individual units. The first engagement began at the outer defensive perimeter as Altarian and Nexari vessels opened fire on the approaching swarm. Energy beams and missile salvos lit up the void, but the results were not encouraging. "Minimal damage to enemy bioships," came the report from the fleet commanders. "Their hulls are adapting to our weapon frequencies in real time." Tay watched, in growing despair as the defensive line began to collapse. Viridian attack organisms swarmed over the Allied vessels like insects, their bioweapons cutting through shields and armor with terrifying efficiency. Within minutes, 3 ships had been completely consumed, their matter converted into more. "Attack organisms! Admiral!" Dr. Hana called out urgently. "I am detecting massive energy signatures approaching from Galactic South, multiple contacts moving at incredible velocity." "Reinforcements?" Tay asked hopefully. "Unknown configuration," Hana replied, her instrument struggling to process the sensor data. "The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases." Through the tactical display, they watched as 17 new contacts streaked toward the battle zone. As they drew closer, the true nature of the approaching vessels became clear. "Those are the humans' hybrid ships," Engineer Ara breathed in amazement. But they have changed. The vessels that had left Nexus Prime as strange blends of biology and technology had evolved into something far more terrifying. Their hulls now, rippled with predatory muscle, weapons ports that moved like eyes tracking targets, and propulsion systems that left trails of bioluminescent energy. How is that possible? Captain Bin demanded. Ships cannot evolve that rapidly. These can, came a familiar voice from behind them. They turned to see the human standing in the command center, though none of them had seen it enter. Its bio-enhanced form had changed as well, new organic components visible beneath its skin, and its dark eyes now held flecks of the same bioluminescence they had seen in the hybrid ships. "Where have you been?" Tay demanded. "Hunting," the human replied simply. The scout forces provided valuable intelligence about enemy capabilities. Modifications to ship design were necessary. "You modified the ships during combat?" "Ships modified themselves based on combat data. Biomechanical systems allow real-time adaptation to optimize effectiveness against specific targets." As they watched, the hybrid fleet engaged the Viridian bioships in a battle unlike anything in galactic history. The human vessels moved like living predators, their attacks precisely coordinated despite operating as separate units. "How are you controlling all of them simultaneously?" Dr. Hana asked. "Shared consciousness network," the human explained, while simultaneously monitoring multiple data streams from its ships. Each vessel operates as an extension of the same tactical awareness system. The first hybrid ship reached the Viridian line, and the results were immediate and devastating. Instead of exchanging fire at long range, the human vessel actually attached itself to a Viridian bioship like a parasite. Within seconds, the enemy vessel began to convulse as its own biological systems turned against it. "What is happening?" Joan asked in horror. "Bioweapon reversal," the human replied calmly. "Viridian ships use biological processes for all major systems. Introducing corrupted biodata causes systemic failure." "You are using computer viruses on living ships?" "More than viruses. Complete reprogramming of biological functions. Enemy vessels become resources for continued operations." Admiral Tay watched in fascination and revulsion as the infected Viridian ship began to change. Its hull started to shift and adapt, weapon ports reconfiguring themselves as the vessel's own biology was turned against its original purpose. "You are converting them," she realized, "turning Viridian bioships into more hybrid vessels." "Optimal resource utilization," the human confirmed. "Enemy fleet strength becomes allied fleet strength. Process ensures rapid tactical advantage." Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated as more hybrid ships engaged Viridian vessels in close combat. Each successful conversion added another unit to the human's fleet while simultaneously reducing enemy numbers. The mathematics of the engagement shifted rapidly in favor of the defenders. "This is impossible," Captain Bin protested. "No single being can coordinate this level of tactical complexity." "Standard organic neural architecture would be insufficient," the human agreed. "Enhancements were necessary for extended multi-unit operations." Dr. Hana's instruments were showing readings that defied explanation. "Your neural activity is beyond measurement. You are somehow processing information from dozens of sources simultaneously. 17 vessels plus station sensor networks plus captured Viridian biodata streams," the human corrected. "Processing capacity continues to expand as more ships join the network." Engineer Ara was monitoring the energy flows from the hybrid fleet, and what she saw made her energy form flicker with amazement. "The converted Viridian ships are not just joining your fleet. They are enhancing it. Each conversion makes the entire network more powerful." Viridian biotechnology was designed for rapid adaptation and growth, the human explained. Redirecting those capabilities toward allied objectives creates exponential force multiplication. The tide of battle had shifted completely. What had begun as a desperate last stand was becoming a systematic harvest as hybrid ships converted more and more Viridian vessels. The few remaining unconverted bioships attempted to withdraw, but the hybrid fleet pursued with relentless efficiency. "The enemy is trying to retreat," June observed. "Retreat is not permitted," the human stated. "Complete elimination required to prevent regrouping and future threat development." Tay watched as the last Viridian bioships were run down and converted, their massive forms writhing as alien biology was reprogrammed for new purposes. Within hours, an enemy fleet that should have been unstoppable had been completely absorbed into the humans' growing armada. "It is over?" she asked. "This engagement is complete," the human confirmed. "However, additional Viridian forces may exist in unexplored regions. Continued hunting operations will be necessary to ensure complete threat elimination." The implications of those words settled over the command center like a death shroud. The human was not planning to stop with this victory. It intended to hunt down every remaining Viridian in the galaxy. "What about our alliance?" Captain Bin asked. "What happens to galactic civilization now that you have this capability?" The human turned its attention to the security chief, and Bin felt that familiar predatory assessment in its gaze. "Your species will continue to exist as long as you do not present a threat to operational objectives. And if we do, then you will be optimized for more useful purposes." Dr. Hana's instruments detected something that made her crystalline structure dim with fear. "Admiral, the converted Viridian ships are not shutting down their biological systems. They are still growing, still evolving." "Of course," the human replied. "Biomechanical enhancement is an ongoing process. Each combat engagement provides new data for optimization. Through the tactical displays, they could see the hybrid fleet arranging itself around Nexus Prime.